you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello everyone and welcome to our show. Today we discuss about monetization, how you can monetize your projects to get more sales results, because if you have traffic and you can't sell, this traffic is useless. So I'm so excited to discuss this topic with John Kotowski. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Anatoly.
Yeah. I love learning from experts who have practical experience. Before we start, just tell more about yourself, experience, background, and why you decided to share with us about monetization in sales funnel.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Over the last decade, over the last 10 years or so, I helped scale 3 companies as head of product. So I worked as head of product for 3 different companies. 2 of those companies were VC backed. One was bootstrapped. 2 of them got acquired for a total of over 140 million. One of them raised 50 million in VC capital. But each time I led a product team at those organizations, I saw the same challenge. And the challenge was that the product teams were too disconnected from revenue. So again, like product teams would deliver these great products, a lot of value through features. But again, there was a huge disconnect between the product team initiatives and the revenue that those products were making. And then in 2019, I joined Format. So Format was one of those 3 companies. And at Format, there was no sales team. And the CEO is like, hey, John, as head of product, now you're not only responsible for building products, but you're also responsible for revenue. And it really forced me and my team to be very thoughtful about not only building value for users, but also thinking through monetization. How do we actually convert that value that we deliver to users into revenue? And the results were phenomenal. We got so good at understanding how to grow revenue through our product initiatives that we could literally forecast MRR, our revenue growth, almost 12 months in advance with like 90% accuracy. We got really, really good at this. And then Format sold in 2021, November 2021. And that's when I decided to work for myself. And that's when I started Buyerson. And through Buyerson, I really want to help other SaaS founders and their teams connect the dots between value and revenue. So that's when Buyerson was born. It's almost a year old. And just quickly about Buyerson. So Buyerson is a consulting and research company. We work with SaaS companies between 5 million to 25 million in ARR. And we help them with pricing and packaging, PLG, product-led growth implementations. And we predominantly work with their product teams.
Nice. Love your experience. And I like how you can share the stories. Can you tell how it's important to create storytelling style in sales funnel? Because I often see when many companies, new companies, they usually submit features that have high quality products, but it's hard to sell without sharing stories. For example, I remember when Tim Cook from Apple, when he showed new Apple Watch, after that I bought 3 pairs, for me, for my son, for my wife, because I can't buy just one. They probably kill me, if I buy just for me. And it's interesting. He shared 3 stories how this Apple Watch can help others. I don't remember exactly the stories, but the main reason of that was to show how it can simplify your life, decide your problems. You started from sharing your story. Can you tell about importance of storytelling style in sales funnel?
Yeah. So, I mean, anytime you're selling a product, you really have to connect to both the users as well as the buyers. So what you really want to do is understand their pain points. I think that's really sort of like the foundation of good monetization is you have to develop good buyer personas or user personas, and you really have to understand like what are the pain points that you're helping them deal with, and what is the value that your product or your offering is delivering to them, and how is it helping them with those pain points. And I think the best way to articulate sort of like how like your product or your offering is delivering value and solving those pain points is through stories. So good storytellers sort of like, again, incorporate those elements into their stories to say, okay, like this Apple Watch can help you like in a dangerous situation, because again, like if you have a heart attack, it will detect it, it will send a signal to call 911 for you, and it could potentially save your life. It's a much better story, or it's a much more compelling value prop than saying, hey, this watch has this much battery life, or like it has so many gigabytes. So again, like good product, and this is where like good product marketers will understand both the pain points and the value props, and again, like convert that into good messaging that really resonates with the target audience.
Yeah. Let's talk about creating a buying persona, because you mentioned a few times about buying persona, and we have interesting quote in marketing: if you sell to anyone, you sell to no one. So can you tell how to create a buying persona, how to get this data about buying persona and unite with unique selling proposition? Because I see when many websites projects, they usually check out competitors, but competitors might have their strong sides, own unique selling proposition, so it's not related even if you sell the same products. Can you tell more about buying persona?
Yeah, for sure. I love this topic. And before I even get started, I think one thing I want to recognize is that right now, like a lot of SaaS companies sell to clients where the user persona and the buyer persona may not be the same. So, for instance, like Slack. I'll use Slack as an example. So, the users of Slack are people who are on the ground using Slack to communicate, but they may not necessarily be the buyer. The buyer might be somebody in the IT department. So in some cases, they are the same. So user and the buyer might be the same. At Format, in fact, Format, my last company, catered to photographers, and the buyer and the user were the same persona. So I just wanted to acknowledge that when we talk about buyer personas, we often refer to the person who's actually making the purchase or has the purchasing power. But again, like in situations where the user and the buyer is different, you have to actually consider both. Now, in order to actually develop good buyer personas, the best practice is to interview your customers, and this is assuming you've already found your product market fit. So again, like once you're once you're past that stage where you have enough customers, where you have clear product market fit, we always recommend starting with customer interviews. We, like typically you want to get at least 8, somewhere between 8 to 10, depending on, like if your product has a number of diverse use cases catering to diverse number or set of audiences, you may want to increase that number, but usually between 8 and 10, you can sort of like triangulate the pain points and the value prop. So we always start with interviews, and interviews, tend to be around 45 minutes long, and this is where we do a lot of discovery to really understand so like what prompted them to look for a product, whoever's product it is, which usually helps us uncover the pain points. Like what is it that they're trying to solve? Why were they seeking out the product of that company? And then subsequently we also sort of like start drilling down, okay, so now how did this product or how did this solution help you solve this pain point? So those are sort of like the two most important things you want to discover is pain points and value props. Now, during those interviews, we often sort of like stumble upon competitive or alternative solutions. So if you didn't have this product, what else would you use? And it could be, a direct competitor, or it could be, like using a sales spreadsheet or using Google Sheets to solve the problem. So sometimes there's alternatives. So once you uncover those pain points and those value props and alternatives, those are sort of like, that's the foundation for your buyer personas. Then what you can do is then you can start overlaying it with data. And there's two sets of data. One is sort of like internal usage data. So you go through your product and you sort of start triangulating, people who answered these questions during interviews that had these unique pain points, what are their data attributes? So like, what companies do they work for? What kind of usage do they log in every day? Do they log in weekly? How big are the teams? So you can start adding attributes, which is really helpful for both marketing and sales teams, because when they want to go and go after and find more customers like that, again, like they need that information. It's like, where do they work? What kind of companies? So you start overlaying internal data, and then on top of that, if you're looking at changing your monetization, your pricing or packaging, we recommend doing things like max diff for feature preferences. So max diff is a type of survey where you ask your customers or prospects about their feature preferences. So which ones do they care most about? Do they care about reporting? Do they care about APIs? Do they care about SOC compliance or multi-factor authentication? So once you start getting those feature preferences, again, you start attributing those to the personas. So now you have a clear picture for each persona. What is their pain point? What is the value prop? What features do they value the most? And what are their quantitative attributes? So again, like what data? What does the data tell you? And if your aim is to adjust pricing and packaging, you can then further overlay that with what we call willingness to pay surveys or studies, where you start gauging, what should be the right price point. And there's a lot of considerations that goes into that, because it depends whether you're asking existing customers or non-customers, whether you're asking about existing feature set or future feature set, because I can tell you, nobody will tell you, they want to pay more for what they're already paying for, right? So you have to be really careful. But those are sort of like the main factors for building out buyer personas. And then, once you have buyer personas, I think they're super, super critical for every software organization, because really you want to align your product team, your marketing team, your sales team, your support team around these buyer personas. So, as the product team is planning the product roadmap, do you know who they're building for? Are they building for, the freemium persona, or are they building for an agency, or are they building for sort of like an enterprise brand? Same with marketing, like adjusting their messaging and positioning accordingly, making sure the website, everything through the funnel is aligned to those personas. And the sales team as well, how they organize themselves, what portion or which personas are going through, potentially PLG funnels. So which ones are going through the freemium or free trial, versus at what point do you want to get your direct sales team involved?
Love it. Yeah, so valuable. Okay, what about new projects? New products, for example, if companies created new high-quality products, how to analyze pain points of customers and satisfy their intent?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that in two parts. So, if we're talking about adding new features to an existing product, in a way, it's a little bit easier, because then we can assume you already have an existing product, so you have an existing set of users and customers. So you basically you do that through standard product management and research practices. So you talk to your customers, you analyze data, you talk to your support sales team, so you uncover pain points. But again, like, what's important is you want to tie those back to those buyer personas. So you as you're planning a big or sort of like marquee feature release, you identify which ones are going to be the money makers versus which ones are going to be sort of like going out to everybody just to support the quality of the product. So one example is, like fixing bugs or adding, small enhancements that will make everybody's life easier. That's not something you necessarily want to monetize. That's sort of like you add it to maintain the quality of the platform or the product. But, like at Format, like I mentioned, I was responsible for driving revenue. So I had to, like every quarter, I'm like, okay, which feature or which new product, will actually help me grow revenue. So in those cases, you really, really want to sort of like think through, how is this going to be monetized? Are you changing the plans? So are you adding a new plan, or are you, going to bundle this as an add-on so somebody can purchase a plan and then, add video as an add-on? How are you going to meter it? So, I'll use video as an example. Are you going to be pricing it per minute, or, is it per gigabyte, or is it, per number of viewers? So there's a lot of considerations. As a like what I learned at Format, it's usually good to plan those features at least two quarters ahead, because you want to work with your marketing and the sales team and everybody just to make sure everything is aligned. You've got to consider your billing system, etc. Now, you also asked about new products. So, what's happening when you're launching new products? I guess I would break it down into two use cases. One is if you're a brand new company, launching a brand new product, you have no customers, no nothing. You don't really have product market fit at that point. So at that point, you really just, you release something, and I wouldn't necessarily say you want to focus on monetization at first, because at first you really just want growth. Like you just want to prove product market fit. So from the pricing perspective, one of the easiest things to do is you get it out there and you put some price on it. Maybe it's close to what the competitor is charging, and see if somebody will buy at that price. And if they do, like for the next customer, you can actually increase the price and see if they buy at that price. So that's one way to test pricing, or if it's too expensive, you can discount it or lower the price. So that's how you can do it for brand new products where you have no historical data. If it's a second, or if you're adding products to your existing portfolio and you're cross-selling to your existing customer base. So again, like we actually did this at Format. We had one flagship product and we developed a second product because we wanted to cross-sell to existing customers. We knew the pain points through our research because we tapped into our existing user base. So we interviewed them. We did continuous discovery. Every week we got on calls with photographers. We talked to them basically about what they do, how they address their current pain points. It was during COVID, how COVID was affecting. So we uncovered a lot through interviews and through research. And then from the pricing perspective, again, because it was a little bit or we already had an existing customer base, that's when you can start running willingness to pay surveys. So, and this is actually a little bit easier because this is not something that current customers have. So you can literally go back to your customers and say, if you had this product, what would it be worth to you? And there's a couple of key tools that we use in pricing studies. One is called Van Westendorp, where you ask 4 questions. You ask, what would be too expensive? What would feel right? Too little, or too little, so the quality doesn't sound good. And then you mapped, or you chart those. The other one is a tool called Garber Granger, where you show somebody describe the feature set, or you show them the product, and you say, would it be worth to you for $20? And if they say yes, you show them another price. Would it be worth at $25, etc. And you keep going up until they say you can't. So you can kind of detect what is the right price for that persona. But again, you have to keep in mind, who are you interviewing? So are you interviewing people who fall into the entry level, or the the more premium persona?
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's talk about leading customers from the bottom funnel to top funnel. Yeah, because the main goal, we want to sell. So if we provide value, share value, help them, support them, but how to lead them in the next stage of sales funnel? Because just to the final goal.
So from the funnel perspective, again, I've worked at both large enterprise and PLG. So a Format, which was my last company as head of product, we had over 40,000 customers, and so that was really a numbers game. In the larger companies like Tulip, we only had 12 customers, so everything was direct sales. So I'll use Format because I think this is more relevant in this case. So our funnel was driving traffic to the website, free trial for 14 days, and then actually converting them within after the trial. So from there's a lot of talk about funnels versus loops. Ideally, the traditional funnel is get lots of site traffic, so lots of people visiting your site, and then you have multiple steps. So from a site visit to entering the trial, so you want to optimize that conversion between site visit to trial, and then within trial you want to get them to hit certain key events to make sure that they see value during the trial from the product. and then hopefully after they've activated and engaged with the product, they'll enter their credit card and actually convert and end up paying you. So from that perspective, again, like you really want to optimize every step, but there's a lot of talk about growth loops lately opposed to funnels, and I think again, like that's one of our lessons was like funnels are great. You can optimize every step in the funnel to again like along the way, but it's even better if you can create a growth loop. So at Format, we had this one little hack where Format was basically a website publisher. So you, as a photographer, you could display your online portfolio on a website, similar to Squarespace or Wix, but again, it was just focused on creatives. So one of the hacks that we had was on the lower tier plans, we placed our logo at the bottom of the website, which was made by Format. So every time a customer signed up and they would sign up and publish a website, they would actually publish a website with our logo at the bottom of the screen. And that actually, like drove traffic back to the site. So that way we got more visitors, and a certain portion of them again entered the trial, and certain portion of them activated and converted to paying users. So from the funnel point of view, again, like it's usually like pretty standard, especially with PLG. So like optimize it along each step to make sure you get good conversion rates, and then but again, like I think the future, especially in PLG, is about creating those loops where again, like the product is helping you bring more traffic or more trials back to the site.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about call to action. For example, how to find the balance between strong call to action and overselling, because sometimes I open landing pages and see buy it, order it, something that can provoke the feeling to buy, but it's annoying. So but I often see landing pages without strong call to action, just small button, I can't find it, it's hard to click for this button. Can you tell how to find this balance? Yeah, and what type of message to submit to call to action that will provide the reason to buy products?
Yeah, so I remember we often had a lot of healthy friction at Format with our CEO. So our CEO always pushed us to be very salesy, and my product team was all about like good user experience and brand. So I called it healthy friction because again, like we had a lot of discussions about this. I think to be honest, it's the data really tells the story. So it's opinions are nice, but at the end of the day, CTAs are one of those things that can be tested fairly easily, assuming you have enough traffic. So if you have enough people coming to the site or to the pricing page or the landing page or wherever you're testing your CTA, you can set up A/B tests, and you can literally like over time see which one is performing better. So I mean, there's a set of standard best practices. So like you have clear CTA. It's like it's easily accessible. If you're talking about pricing plans or pricing pages, usually, especially if you have like 3 or 4 plans, like you have one that's highlighted and you say, this is the most popular, and like that CTA says buy now, or like etc. But again, like when it came to CTAs, most of the time, like we would pick 2 or 3 and we would just like A/B test the crap out of it, and so like pick the one that performed the best. And again, it really depends on which part of the funnel you're placing the CTA. So again, like is this from the site visit to entering the trial, or like booking a call, or like starting a freemium, or is it when you're purchasing, making that purchase decision? I think that one thing I can sort of like share with you is that some of the biggest gains that we had from revenue and monetization point of view at Format, because we did a lot of experiments, was within the checkout funnel. So again, like once the trial ended, or was about to end, and somebody clicked that hit or buy now, the way we presented the plans, the way the screen flowed, adding the social proof, that any experiments, or most of our successful experiments in that part of flow, had the biggest impact on revenue. I remember one time we did this simple experiment where we reversed the order of plans. So we had least expensive to most expensive, and then we reversed it so it was most expensive to least expensive, and that had like 15% increase in ARPU. So like it skewed the plan selection. But again, like that was a trivial experiment from the development point of view. Like it was like it was less than a day to implement. But again, like in terms of revenue from new customers, it bumped up revenue by 15%, which is huge. So again, like that's where we saw the most gains in terms of experimentation.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, awesome. By the way, I think all big companies, they usually test a lot of testing. I remember when HubSpot shared study about 200 different landing pages, to check out what actually works. So if you have huge audience, why not? You can create many landing pages to analyze which landing page provides better results and jump with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think experiment again, like as long as you have the traffic, because if you want to do it properly, you have to reach statistical significance, which means you have to have enough traffic coming to those pages. But if you do, then again, like there's no reason. I think that one thing that might be holding teams back, especially with smaller organizations, is they just don't prioritize it. In some cases, if they are VC backed, like they have lots of funding, it might be all focused on growth and acquisition. So they might be ignoring. But again, like even then, experimentation can definitely help you acquire more customers, not to mention with retention and monetization. So again, like I think, I'm all for experimentation and growth.
Okay, let's talk about mistakes. Can you share a list of common mistakes that companies usually do? Because we started our podcast with your story when you has helped to grow company, to monetize much more. From your experience, what mistakes companies still do and how to avoid them?
Yeah, I think the number one mistake is when companies start scaling. So I'm talking about, again, like once a company finds product market fit, but before like raising Series B or C, they're in this sort of like scaling mode where maybe they've they've raised a seed round, or like maybe Series A round, or maybe they're bootstrapping, and again, like they're already hitting like 5 million in revenue. One of the biggest mistakes is, again, like they neglect pricing and packaging, and the reason for that is because pricing and packaging is one of those things that doesn't have a clear owner in an org chart. And I've spoken to probably hundreds of different founders and I've asked the same question. I'm like, who owns your pricing and packaging? And almost every time it's a little different. Like sometimes it was the founder or the CEO who set the original pricing. Sometimes it's the marketing team. Sometimes, God forbid, it's the sales team. And and I say God forbid because the sales team is the worst department or team to own pricing because they're not incentivized to optimize for so like maximum revenue. They just want to close deals, collect commission. So they'll do anything to discount to to win the customer. So one of the main challenges is it just doesn't have a clear owner. And at the 3 companies where I worked to set up product, every time I joined, it was the same problem again. Like nobody really owned it. The product team was not involved, and I would put up my hand and I'd be like, oh, can I start running with pricing and packaging? And it was amazing the amount of impact that I had every time I started owning and contributing to pricing. And in every case, it was all different. So at Tulip, for instance, again, like much larger enterprise B2B SaaS company compared to Format, but like one of the challenges was, again, like there was too much discounting by the sales team. Every deal looked a little different. So I basically aligned with the CEO saying, hey, listen, every deal or every contract that we put in front of a prospect has to go through me and the finance team. So that's how I learned a lot about pricing and packaging, because I would see all these contracts and I'll be like, all right, like if we're pricing it per store or per location, like we're discounting here, like we need to increase the commitment. So, like we'll give you a discount, but you have to commit for 2 years. We have to commit for the X number of stores. So that taught me a lot about, how to structure deals. And again, like those were massive impacts. So like, the contract value could increase from, like $1 million to $1.5 million. So again, like, I think so going back to your original question. So like, what's the biggest mistake that early stage companies make? I think it's they don't pay enough attention to pricing and packaging because there's no clear owner, and it often is not a priority for them, and they're literally leaving money on the table.
Yeah, valuable. Got it. Okay, let's talk about pricing. Not about pricing, it's more about, I have the question. For example, I remember from one marketing book that customers can change their hard-earned money with products if they believe that these products cost more than their money. So can you tell how to provoke this feeling? Because you mentioned about pricing, about how to provoke the feeling that our products are much better than their money.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, what you're selling when you're pricing is value. So you have to consider like what value are you delivering to your customers, whether you're a B2B or B2C company. Now, B2B, I think, is a little bit easier because there's fundamentally three types of values that you provide as a software company. The first one is helping you save money or time. The second one is helping you reduce risks. The third one is helping you generate more revenue. So you have to. So I'll use B2B as an example. So again, like you have to, when you're pricing your product as a B2B software company, you have to sort of like figure out which value are you delivering. If it's saving time, for instance, like if you're I don't know, project management company and you're making your team more efficient. Because again, like they're, instead of using email or just Slack, again, like everything is well organized, and every project they save, $100, or like you can sort of like almost calculate how much money they're saving because they're more efficient because of your product. That's really the value that you're delivering to them. Now, the thing you have to consider is the next best alternative. So like if they weren't using your project management tool to save time and money to be more efficient, what would they be doing? So in that case, again, like, would they be just using Slack and email, or would they, like, what's the next, or would they be using Monday.com as an example? So you have to take those factors into consideration. So again, like, what value are you providing to your users, and then how do you stack against your next best alternative, whether it's a direct competitor or indirect competitor, like you said, Slack or email. Then so like, depending on the next best alternative, you can start thinking about, like, how do you want to position yourself? Do you position yourself as a premium brand? So it's like, okay, everything about my brand, like the way it looks, the way it feels, the way the product behaves is a little bit more premium than the next best alternative. You can actually charge or command a premium price for your products. So, like Apple versus Android, right? The whole brand, like, you could argue Apple has more features or is better, but, like, at the end of the day, like, a lot of them are fairly comparable, but Apple can justify higher pricing because of the brand. So again, or you're, on the flip side, you could be, like a no frills brand where you're undercutting. So you're always the cheaper alternative. So you save. So I think those are like the three main components, is like the value that you provide. Again, like your next best alternative. So who are you competing against, and how are you positioning yourself from this strategy point of view? Like, do you want to be a premium brand? Do you want to align with your competitors, or you want to be the no frills brand?
Yeah, interesting. Okay, can you tell me what Apple can use, to convince me to buy more expensive products? Because I have iPhone, Apple Watch, MacBook. All my family have only Apples, and yeah.
I think they're already doing a good job then.
Yeah. And okay, what kind of benefits to provide to customers or create this brand loyalty to sell more expensive products? I mean, like compared to others, because I think Android is good, many other companies, brands are good, but Apple has more than 50% of all market share in the US. I mean, like in smartphone market. Can you tell more about brand loyalty? How to create this feeling?
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I'm not a marketer. But like watching what, and I'm an Apple's guy too. I have most of my hardware is Apple, and I think again, like a lot of this starts with the brand itself. So again, like, and this started with Steve Jobs, and so like how he positioned the brand as like this excellent experience, simple yet powerful, and from that brand, like the products and the way they do their releases and everything kind of follows that brand. So I think it really starts at the top. Now the pricing is sort of like easy after you've done those steps, because now you have like this powerful brand with really powerful stories, as you mentioned before. So once you have those components and you have that marketing machine going, and your product team and your R&D team is sort of like aligning their products and their releases to that brand, then it's easy. So like, you sort of like price accordingly because you've done that work. You can't really do it the other way around. You can't just like price something really high and, say, okay, now let's see if we can back into it. So you really have to start with sort of like at the top. And I think brand is really important. Like Android doesn't, maybe it's because it's so, like it's just a different business model. It's not, like owned by one company. Like it's more of a, there's many different manufacturers, and Google's involved. Maybe it's because they don't have sort of like that control over the brand, or maybe again, like part of it is they choose to be so like the sort of like lower priced alternative, or like alternative that doesn't have sort of like that same sort of like brand loyalty. But again, like I'm not a branding guy, but I would say that's where you want to start. And in fact, a lot of clients that we work with is like, hey, like we actually speak to their marketing team and their executive teams, and it's like, okay, how do you want to position yourself as a brand? Because that will impact your pricing. Again, like, do you want to be premium? Do you want to be sort of like on par with your competitors, or do you want to be the no frills brand?
Yeah. Okay, John, I have the question about how to learn today about monetization more. For example, let's imagine you have no experience, knowledge, skills, anything. You didn't help companies to grow their revenue a lot, to get this crazy money. Can you tell what will you do today if you need to start from scratch and learn more about monetization?
Yeah. So the good news is, there's a lot more resources out there than there ever was before. Especially, like if you're working on a product team. So, like if you're looking for free resources, Lenny's newsletter has excellent set of resources. So Lenny is very much involved in the community. He has a newsletter that's free. There's a paid option. He also does podcasts with a lot of thought leaders. He has a Slack group. So, like that's sort of like on the more affordable side. If you're looking to get a little bit, or if you have the budget, you can take Reforge. So Reforge offers a lot of courses. One of them is on monetization. I think it's a 6 or 8 week course. And they bring in really the industry leaders to sort of like help and teach that course. So again, like depending on your budget, I would say Lenny's newsletter is sort of like a good place to start. Lots of good resources and links. If you have more money, you can take a Reforge course. And the good thing about Reforge is they are they bring a lot of people together. So once you take that course, you make a lot of connections, and so like compare notes with peers, and you can share stories, ask for advice. So I would recommend both.
Nice, love it. Okay, I have the final question. Can you predict the future of marketing? I mean, like the future of monetization, marketing, because many things are coming, like metaverse, Web 3.0. What kind of future can you see? And what it's better to do today to adapt to the possible future?
So yeah, I'll give you a couple. So one is just, like, especially given the economic situation we're in, I think a lot more companies will be under pressure to pay more attention to revenue and monetization. So, like when VC money is flowing and when there's lots of funding, like it's okay, like we'll just focus on growth and we'll figure out how to make money off of those users later on. That story doesn't really compute or is not as compelling when again the economy is in a bit of a downturn. So short term, I think you'll see a lot more companies sort of like paying attention. In fact, there was a survey on SaaStr where over 54% of B2B SaaS companies said they would be raising prices next year, and some of these companies like HubSpot had never risen prices before. So again, like you'll see a lot more companies paying attention to monetization and pricing over the next couple of years, I think. And the second prediction is with the rise of product-led growth. So, like more and more companies offering, going after users before, like getting people to buy the product. So whether it's a free trial or freemium offering, I think you'll see a bigger shift from monetization being owned by product teams versus just sales teams. So historically, like the product team would build a product, the marketing team would, like find audience for it, and then the sales team would actually drive their revenue. But again, like now that a lot of companies like Zoom or Slack have people entering the product through those freemium channels or free trials, product teams, so whether it's CPO, head of product, have a lot more influence over how much revenue they can gain, because they control that journey of like the user journey, but also like the activation and as well as the checkout journey. And then there's like an interesting cross between, like at what point do you hand over this account that signed up for free with a bunch of users to the sales team? So this is where you start getting into PQLs, product qualified leads, and like making sure you involve your sales team at the right point and that they have the right touch points with not only users but different influencers within the organization. So again, like the two predictions are again like around product-led growth and more product or product ownership of revenue or shifting. And then the second one is again like short term, we'll see a lot more companies paying attention to monetization.
Nice, love it. John, it's a big pleasure to get on the show,
likewise.
to learn from you. Tell our audience how they can reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So just hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me, or direct message me. I spend, I'm almost there every day. So LinkedIn is sort of like my go-to social platform right now.
Okay, guys, you can find the link to LinkedIn profile in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. A big pleasure. Welcome back anytime to share more value. Guys, you need to follow John. You can see a lot of valuable insights. Okay, guys, love you. See you.
Thanks, Anatoly.